tell, last week I had a very short title for my talk, and the title was ambiguous because I really hadn't a clue what I was going to say. This title is fairly complicated and long, and you may be thinking, oh no, he's going to get wound up and he's not going to stop this morning. That's why they brought so much food at the back of the church. But if you read that title and think about it, I think you will have a basic sense of what I'm hoping to say. That the ideal condition is that we be people who are truthful and loving. And that being truthful and loving as the ideal is open to misinterpretation or misexpression. We can err too much on the side of being loving, and we can err too much on the side of being truthful. This is so in all of our relations, in marriages, in family relations. We are persons who are learning to live truthful lives and loving lives. And Barbara and I were discussing this morning a small example of what this might mean, and that has to do with how we have been spending some time with the medical profession and the medical institution as my dad has been progressing through his experience with cancer to his last day yesterday. And one thing that we've noticed, and Barbara has a very astute eye for this because of her experience in the university world and her experience in the hospital world, is that some of the doctors seem very reluctant to be open and truthful with us as a family. It seemed very hard about 2 weeks ago for the physicians to come right out and say to Mom and to my brothers and sisters, your husband has got cancer, and the cancer is in so deep that there is really nothing we can do. What the doctors did, they were kind and generous, but they tried to let it be known that although this was a serious situation, maybe this could happen or maybe this could happen. So that at one point, Dad wanted to know, what, can I have dialysis at home? Now, if you have some experience with the medical system, you know that dialysis is a very hard experience, even when you're quite young and sturdy. At the age of 85 with advanced cancer, the dialysis would have done nothing to give him any advantage. It would have prolonged his experience of dying, but it would have not brought him any meaningful sense of health. Now, we are fortunate in our family, and some of you have experience with this, is that Barbara knows how to hear medical talk, how to interpret medical talk, and how to express it in ways that we can understand. So Barbara and I, with the physicians, got to the point where we acknowledged openly that we were now going to be doing palliative care. We were a little surprised. We discovered they're calling it comfort care in some places. But we had made the decision that we were going to help Dad and Mom and all of us get through this experience in the best way possible. What I'd like to suggest is that doctors err on the side of love or care. They don't want the family to have to come face to face with the fact that somebody they love deeply is going to be dying very shortly. But they are not doing favors by doing that. Doctors also need to learn how to walk the line between truthfulness and caring compassion, or love. And what I'm saying about physicians is exactly the same for ministers and perhaps any profession. Except for maybe, is there a mechanic in the house? A mechanic might want to find stuff wrong with your car just so he can make some more money. I'm hoping doctors and ministers don't do that. But ministers, too, are challenged with telling the truth and being loving. And the example of telling the truth is given to us in the text from Ezekiel, where God tells Ezekiel that he needs to go and speak to the people. And he needs to let the people know that things have come to be in a pretty terrible state, and that this terrible state is a direct result of the decisions that they have been making over an extended period of time. And Ezekiel may have felt, why me? Why do I have to tell the people that everything that they're hoping for is no longer going to happen, but something that they desperately don't want to happen is going to happen? And that brings me to Jesus, because Jesus also speaks about the prophetic voice and the challenge of being a prophetic voice, and the possibility that in speaking the truth to a people in a time of great conflict or crisis may not be favorable for you. People may not like you. People may want you to shut up. In the text in Ezekiel, one place, they say to Ezekiel, look, go and talk somewhere else. Don't talk to us about this. But Jesus doesn't stop with telling the truth about the circumstances in which the people live. And as ministers, we ought also not to stop simply by saying the world is in one heck of a predicament right now, and it's in that predicament because of decisions we have been making. And the prophet's task is not only to say that other people are to blame, but the prophet's task is to call the people to self-examination to see how perhaps they have been responsible. And this is not about personal salvation when the prophets speak. It's about social health. It's about national health. It's about global health. That's what the prophets are addressing. And they address the situation of trouble not to denounce or to judge, but to make possible the opportunity for healing. But we know, those of us who are familiar with the scripture and familiar with history, that people do not always listen to the words of the prophets or the words of their ministers when they are truthful. And so, sometimes the warning, which is intended to help remedy, the warning is unheeded, and things get to the situation where there is not going to be a change. There's going to be a major crisis. And as a pastor, that's part of my responsibility to say to you, we are heading for a major crisis. Just like Jesus said it in the days of Rome, just like Ezekiel said it in the days of Jerusalem. But Jesus does not stop with the prophetic word. Jesus introduces a new layer, and Jesus begins to show people how to live when the times are so challenging and so difficult. And what he shows them is, whenever you meet a neighbor, whenever you meet a family member, whenever you meet a stranger, whenever, should it happen, you meet your enemy, be kind, be compassionate, be tender-hearted. Do whatever you can to bring some remedy into that situation. So the big picture is declining, and Jesus is going around helping people get through it. But in the text, he doesn't just do that himself. So he's not just a prophet, but he begins to call people and say, you, and you, and you, and you. Follow me. Learn from me. Do the things I am doing. And basically what Jesus is doing is being truthful and being compassionate. So my message to you this morning, the word that I would like to give you, the word that I have heard from the Spirit is, face reality. Don't hide from it. Don't get diverted by all kinds of amusements and entertainment and distractions. Realize what is coming. You might use the squirrel as the example, who knows winter is coming and is busy all summer caching nuts for that coming winter. We now cannot avoid knowing where we are headed as a society and as people on this planet. But this does not mean we become despairing. What this means is we become agents of compassion and agents of truth. We help our family and friends and neighbors come to terms with what's really happening, and suggesting to them that in the face of what's really happening, the meaning of your life does not need to be diminished. In fact, in such a time, you may have opportunity to discover exactly what it is to live a meaningful life. And that is to be loving towards others and to be truthful about what is happening in the world. And I know from my experience as a minister in the church that that's a life work. In the early times when I would speak to people about the things I saw and the things I heard by the Spirit of God, people would get up and leave the room, people would get annoyed with me, people would get angry at me, people would go, oh, who the heck does he think he is? And I had a friend once who said, George, you are saying things that people need to hear, but the way in which you are saying them makes it impossible for them to hear. But I believe I've gotten to a point in my life where the truth is now well mixed with the love. I have no desire to frighten anybody. I have no desire to judge anybody. I have only desire that God's people would step out of their accustomed patterns to entertain and to embrace new patterns. And basically the pattern is, how do I be truthful? How do I be loving? And I would like you to know that my experience here and my experience in the church in general suggests that deep down you are already there. It's getting rid of some of the surface stuff, the stuff that distracts and distorts. So, God's love is in you. Let God's love nurture you, and let God's love in you be communicated in all of your relations. And that's why we come to a table like this, to be strengthened, not just so we can be saved, but so we can be useful, so we can be servants, so we can be supporters and